Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Steelers Sanctuary podcast. I'm your host, Dave Ribeiro from SteelersSanctuary.com. And I have the usual suspects with me today, David Korb and Ron Lipbach. But today we have a special guest, Trai Essex, former offensive lineman, as we all know from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Hey, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, fellas.
Thanks a lot for coming on. It's perfect time and getting you on because the Steelers have signed a couple of offensive linemen. I wanted to get your take on them, especially Isaac Seumalo. I saw on Twitter that you seem to really like that signing.
Yes. I mean, how can you not? He was a large part of the Eagles' run to the Super Bowl, a large part of the leading offense, rushing offense for the Eagles. He's a big, tough guy. He's been there 8 years, I think he's been in the league now at this point, so he has a lot of experience. And just the way he pulls, the way he moves guys where they don't want to go. When you got a guy, an offensive guard, who can move defensive linemen and take them where they don't want to go, that's always a plus for your offensive line. And he did a great job of that this year, and I'm excited to see what he can do for us.
Ron, you got a question?
Yeah, so it seems to go along with this whole sort of change in scheme that the Steelers are trying to implement, especially with the offensive line, but just generally offensively. And I was just curious to see what your take on that is. Have you noticed a scheme change there? And sort of two parts. Have you noticed it, and how would you describe that? And then secondly, how do you coach around that different kind of scheme that they seem to be implementing now?
I'm not totally sure what they're trying to do. I know they're trying to surround Kenny, obviously, with the protection that he needs. I think they saw a lot in what he can do towards the end of last year. And the one thing you want to do is solidify the inside of that pocket. And so with the offensive lineman they signed this offseason seems to be along those lines of what they're trying to do from a protection standpoint. And from a run game standpoint, I know they want to get that play action pass going. That's been a huge part of what's been missing from our offense the last 2 years. And in order to do that, you need to solidify the interior of the offensive line so that you can pull those interior linebackers and safeties into the ball so that we can open up some plays in the middle. Like, that was a big part of that was missing from our offense, was us attacking the middle of the field in the passing game. And the way how you start to attack that is to solidify the interior of that offensive line so that you can run the ball more effectively, therefore opening up plays in the play action game. But I really like what Omar's doing. He is not being shy about what he's trying to do. He's making it obvious what he thinks we need. Even though our offensive line was healthy last year, did not miss a game, the only offensive line to do that. I think we only had a couple of missed snaps by Mason Cole, and that's it. But
yeah, that was it.
Yeah, and they were able, even with that being said, with the improvement of our offensive linemen, it wasn't where our offense wanted to end up. We still want to improve upon that. And you can tell that was Omar's focus going into that, along with some linebacker changing, interior of our linebacking core. But it was really good to see that them trying to solidify the offensive line, because we noticed that with the teams that made it far in the playoffs this year, with the Eagles and the San Francisco 49ers, with obviously Kansas City being the Super Bowl champions, and what they did to their offensive line at the end of the previous year, they attacked it really hard in the offseason. And I like what Omar is doing with ours.
Hey, what do you think this means for Kevin? I'm sorry. What do you think this means for Kevin Dotson? They signed 2 guards, not just one.
Right.
I guess I hope he's not renting. I hope he is renting, I should say, instead of.
I still have faith in Dotson, and I think.
Do you?
Yeah, I think it was his. He didn't have a lot of competition last year going into this year. He was the left guard by default, and we didn't see the same type of, I guess, first and second year improvement you would like to see, especially with how he ended his rookie year. There was a lot of promise before he got hurt that he was going to be the guy at left guard. And now with Nate being signed and Isaac being signed, there's some competition in that room. Now, I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing for Dotson. I think he's still, if anything, he's going to have to learn how to be a swing guard, because I think the right guard position is solidified at this point, the right side, and Mason. And you think, I mean, if we're just looking at it on paper, Isaac's going to come in and you pay him that much money, he's going to be our starter at left guard.
Yeah.
But you still want to see how this kid reacts, how he responds to the fact that, yeah, he did play every snap last year, but we didn't see that improvement, that jump that usually you see between the first and second year, especially with a guy that had that many snaps last year. You want him to be able to improve more than he did. And he has the tool set. He has the skill set. He just didn't apply it, and we didn't get the same type of production from him that we would have liked. And so that's why we were attacking it so hard. So I think there's still some value in him from a swing guard perspective, even if Nate ends up taking that position. But you would like to have the interior line to be at least 4 or 5 deep on game day.
Yeah, for sure. I had a quick question. I'm gonna let David jump in. I know David's just logging in here, but you talked, a lot about how the offensive line was. They didn't miss any snaps last year, and so that's a huge benefit. How do you get to a point as a coach where you're getting new players? Because now you could have at least 2 new starters, probably 3, or maybe 2, maybe 3 on that offensive line, depending on what they do in the draft. How do you get an offensive line to gel so quickly? I mean, I remember talking to a lot of the players, and they talked about sort of the off-field stuff that they did, the dinners that you guys did, that really mattered almost as much as the stuff you did in practice. But how, as a coach, do you get all these guys on the same page so quickly so that you start off strong?
There is no substitute for experience, unfortunately. And the way that the offseason is scheduled now and how it's constructed, there's not a lot of contact. For better or for worse. And usually when there's not a lot of contact, the position group that affects the most is the offensive line. And so the chemistry and how long it takes them to gel takes longer. And we saw what happens when you actually get that experience. We were fortunate because we didn't have the injuries that the guys spent every snap together, and you saw the improvement. Incremental at first, and then you saw towards the last 4 or 5, the last quarter of the season, you really saw big improvement from the beginning of the season to where they ended up. But with new starters in there, it's going to be some of the same process. Now, luckily, the guys that are coming in have experience, and so that makes things a little bit easier. And they have experience playing at a high level, especially with Isaac coming in. And obviously making it to the Super Bowl last year and being a big part of what they did from an offensive standpoint. So Coach Meyer has his work cut out for him, I think, but he's got a good base because of the experience of the offensive game last year, and the guys coming in having experience. So it won't be as much of a learning curve, but the only way you really get in there and get that experience or get that chemistry is through experience and reps.
Dave, you got a question for Trai?
Yeah, I mean, talking about these new guys coming in. For you, Trai, nice to meet you, by the way. What would you tell yourself back in 2005? What would 2023 Trai tell 2005 Trai coming into the league?
Hey, man, you make it sound so long ago. My goodness.
It goes by quick. It does go by
quick. 2023 to 2005. My goodness. But no, it's just this team, if I were to be plopped on this team this year, then if I could tell my 2005 anything, is just to really concentrate and do what you can in the weight room so you can be as position flexible as possible, because there will be a lot of moving parts. There isn't any one position that you can say 100% that is that guy's position, except for maybe Isaac coming in. He's definitely going to take one of the guard spots for sure. But everybody else, I think, through competition, has a chance of either losing or gaining a job. And so what you want to do coming in is you want to be as position flexible as possible and be able to show the coach that you have what it takes to be one of the top 7 or 8 on game day to get the helmet so that, that you can trust him. So we have such a young team, especially at the skill positions. That quarterback, obviously, even with Najee being our veteran leader, being only a third-year guy. So you want to come in and make the coaches comfortable with putting you in the game and knowing that they can trust you on any given game day.
You would know about position flexibility, right? You played like all 5 positions on the offensive line that year. It was 2011, right?
Right. I had to earn my check somewhere, and that was my calling card.
You found a way.
Certainly did.
Hey, Trai, what if you think back over your career and looking at sort of what these guys are going through now, especially obviously the younger ones that may come in through the draft or whatever? What are some of the things that Coach Munchak and some of your other coaches taught you that really made a difference to you? What did they teach you or show you that really, when you think back on it, really helped you the most?
All right, from a personal standpoint, I was one of those guys. I'm a classic over-analyzer. People say that because I went to Northwestern, a lot of you think too much. Well, that's kind of true. I like to think about every possible scenario that can come from any given play, and a lot of times, you've all heard the saying, paralysis by analysis, and sometimes I would hesitate. And so something that Coach Coos taught me, something that Coach Grimm taught me, two of the best offensive line coaches, Coach Zerline. I had three really good offensive line coaches. Told me to just go out there and play. Go out there and play and react, because you've been in the weight room, you've been on the practice field, you know what you're doing. You know what you're doing from a mental standpoint, because you're usually the guy that's helping everybody else with the playbook. So you know what you're doing, Trey. There's no reason for you to hesitate, no reason for you to doubt yourself. And so that constant, hearing that constantly in my ear, knowing they had the confidence that I know what I'm doing, helped me just react and play. And I think a lot of guys can learn from that. A lot of guys get so nervous because this is the big time. This is the NFL. You are playing for the Steelers, one of the best franchises, if not the best. I think personally, obviously the best franchise in NFL history. And there's a lot to live up to being on the offensive line in Pittsburgh. That lineage is deep. It goes a long way. We got some of the best offensive linemen to ever play the game, and you want to be able to live up and be part of that and not embarrass yourself when it comes to being compared to those other guys. And so just going out there and playing, reacting, and having trust in your preparation, it goes a long way.
The standard is the standard.
Yes, it is. Those Tomlinisms never get old. The standard is the standard.
No, they don't. Speaking of that, what's it like playing for Mike Tomlin, Trey? You hear nothing but great things about him. You've obviously been in that room with him. What's it like being a player under Mike Tomlin?
He's great. There was a slight transition. I got drafted by Coach Cowher. And Coach Tomlin was a young guy that after going into my third year, who had to make his own way and not try to just make everybody comfortable and do things like Cowher to ease guys in. No, he had to come in right away and do things his way. And I had a lot of respect for that. Young guy who had never been a head coach in the NFL before, coming to a franchise like that's only a year and a half removed from the Super Bowl, and to come in and make your own mark and have faith and have confidence in what you're doing. I mean, you can't say enough about that, because we were a veteran-led team. We still had a lot of guys left over from Coach Cowher that were still in their prime, and he had to come in and gain the trust of those guys, but do it in a way that was true to himself. And that's something that Tomlin always is true to himself. And guys feed off of that, because that lets them have confidence they can be who they are, you know? And if guys don't have to fake the funk or put on a facade or try to tiptoe on eggshells around coaches, and they can truly be who they are, it really unlocks their true potential as a player on the football field. And that's what Coach Tomlin is best at, really getting guys to unlock their true potential.
Nice.
All right. I'm
Dave,
going to
you
put
got another one?
Trey.
Okay.
Dave, you want to go?
No,
Sure.
go ahead, Ron. You can go.
You go.
I was
Hi,
just
Dave.
going to ask him, talking about the transitioning, what was the big difference between the 05 team and the 08 team? Both teams won the Super Bowl, but what was the big difference between the two?
Coach Cowher, Coach Tomlin. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of difference as far as the locker room. And I tell guys when they ask me, there wasn't a lot of difference in how Coach Cowher and Coach Tomlin approached the locker room. They let men be men. And that's how you get, like I said, guys who really follow you, is that they feel like they can be themselves around you. And that's how you really get the team to mesh, because you get all these personalities from all across the country from different backgrounds. In order to reach one goal, you have to be on the same page. And Coach Tomlin and Coach Cowher both did a great job of laying out the groundwork in order to provide guys that comfortability that can be themselves. But if I had to say, there wasn't a lot different. I mean, I think the 08 team didn't have to worry as much. We didn't have to win, 7 in a row at the end of the season in order to make the playoffs in
Right.
the 6th seed. So we were in a little bit better position going into the playoffs. We were the favorite as opposed to, coming from behind and surprising a lot of folks, even though I think once we got in, people knew we were the real deal and they were scared to play us. But as far as that, there wasn't a whole lot of difference.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to put you on the spot, Trai. When you think back over your career, what is some of the more poignant or funny moments that you could think of on the field or off the field for that matter? I know some of that stuff stays in the locker room, but there's got to be a good memory you could share of your time on the field, going up against the Ravens or just hanging out with your teammates that you could share.
No, I got a funny story about my rookie year. So a little background, I'm from Fort Wayne, Indiana, went to Northwestern. My best season at Northwestern was 6-7. And then I was a Steelers fan growing up. Rod Wilson's from Fort Wayne. And so I went to his camps growing up. So I was ridiculously excited to come play for the Steelers. So when I finally got in the building, I was super focused, uber focused all the time. And I don't know if y'all knew this, but Troy Polamalu is a prankster. And so he took one day of practice, took full advantage of the fact that I am focused. And so I was a second string tackle. And when you're the second string tackle, you're always waiting for the chance to go in and practice. You always got to be ready, or because you don't want to get yelled at. You don't want to get the chin from Coach Cowher. You don't want to get the glare from Russ Grimm. And so I'm sitting there on the sideline waiting for them to transition from first team to second team. And I didn't see Troy, but he would go around and just do his own thing. And so I'm focused. They say, first team off the field, second team on. I go to sprint. Little did I know that while I was just paying attention to practice, Troy came and tied my shoes together on the sideline. And so I took that first step and fall flat on my face. And I practiced. And Coach Cowher's trying his best not to laugh. He's trying to poke his chin out like he's mad at me, but he's under his breath rolling. And so that was a little funny moment of practice, kind of my welcome to Pittsburgh moment. And I was still scared. I didn't know what had happened, and Troy just sitting there with that smile, like, "Okay, young fella, I see you was paying attention, so that's good."
You were not on.
I didn't know Troy was
a
such
lot of you guys.
I didn't know he was such a prankster.
Me neither.
That's a good story. Then.
I didn't realize.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I remember the Kendall Simmons story of him ringing Kendall Simmons' door at 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
And leaving some stuff, let's put it this way, on the doorstep of Kendall Simmons' house. Until
Right.
Kendall Simmons stuck his dogs out on Troy.
That's just part of he was one of the guys. When you got a leader like that that's willing to mess with a rookie, it really, it kind of eliminates that wall, between the rookie guys that are there and the superstars on the team. It makes you feel like you're more comfortable, like you're one of the guys. When a guy like that who will play a prank on you. So I thought that was a pretty good moment. It kind of shows you what kind of guy Troy is. In a good way.
Yeah. All right, I got a good one for you, Trai. Who was the biggest character you ever played with? Who was the maybe craziest Steeler you ever played with?
Ooh.
I know this is probably a long list, right?
That was a tough question. I can go to my buddy at right tackle and Willie Colon, or I can talk about Peasy and Joey Porter.
Oh,
I can talk about Big Snack. Although he wasn't crazy. Snack was just, really chill and the strongest human being.
You must have a bunch on Joey Porter.
Yeah. Oh, Peasy, he was intense all the time. All the time.
I can't even fathom.
But, James Harrison was just scary. I don't even know he was just crazy. He's just terrifying. We had a lot of personalities on the team.
I know.
So I don't know if I could just pick one, but if I had to pick one, it might be Peasy, Joey Porter.
Yeah, I can imagine. He was one of my favorite players back in that time.
Oh, I loved it.
They shot me in Denver and the whole night.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you had a little bit of experience on another team after Pittsburgh.
Right.
So having that perspective of going, I think it was Indianapolis, right? Of going there after Pittsburgh, did it give you any different perspective on what made Pittsburgh different, and how different after that experience was Pittsburgh? I guess in what way? Like, what made Pittsburgh different, and how different was it?
So people really use the cliche that, we're a family, we're a close-knit team. But it's nothing, as far as professional sports are concerned, there is nothing like that in Steelers locker room. And I felt it right away. I knew just from guys leaving and hearing from them and coming back, because we had a couple of guys in Brian McFadden who went to Arizona and came back, Larry Foote who went to Arizona and came back, in Detroit came back, Antoine Randall went to Washington, came back.
That's right.
And so they, I already knew. They told me, it was like, there's nothing like this locker room, nothing like the guys. We didn't have the fanciest locker room. We didn't have all these electronics. It was really down to earth, homegrown. And I think the thing that really kind of sets it apart from anybody else during my time there was to see old man Rooney working out every morning on the elliptical right there for you to talk to. Like, I used to get there like 6 o'clock in the morning. He would be on the elliptical, and I would sit there and talk to the owner of the Steelers like he was
that's wild.
Anybody else on the staff. And so just that, there's no words to really describe that feeling right there, because
That's
I still
crazy.
felt like a little kid around him. Yeah. And so, not to say that there aren't other good owners in the league, but nobody that personable who would come up. And I got another story for you after I say this. So Indianapolis is a good time. Irsay's a good owner. I think he shows his face around a lot, but he's not in there like old man Rooney. And so maybe 2 years after I retired, 3 years, I hadn't been back to Pittsburgh. I come back for one of our reunion evenings. By that time, I had 2 kids, but none of my kids had been back to Pittsburgh. And so I go back to there's a dinner, and everybody's mingling, having a good time. And Mr. Rooney's going around, shaking everybody's hand. And he comes up to me. He's like, Trai, how you doing? I said, how's Amaya and Ava doing? That touched my heart.
That's awesome.
I didn't even know that he knew I had kids, much less their name.
Wow.
And so for him to come up and just ask about them after I hadn't been back in the building for 3 years, just goes to tell you how the Rooneys and the Steelers do business. It's not just false words when they say they really care about you. They're
real.
They really show you in actions, and they are the real deal.
That's awesome. That's an awesome story, man. Bring it back to now. Dan Moore Jr., what's your thoughts on him? I know he struggled a little bit, especially in pass protection last year. How do you see him going forward for the Steelers?
I know he's been kind of a whipping boy for the media and Twitter, but I thought he really improved towards the end of last year. You really didn't hear his name a lot towards the end of a couple of games, which is a good thing for offensive linemen, especially for left tackle. He did not have a good start to the year. There's no way around it. But he stuck to his guns and he improved a lot. I think there's still potential for him. A 4th rounder to come in and start the games he did as a rookie and then a second-year player. There's a lot of potential there. Now, will they address it in the draft? Who knows? I think Skoronski, my Northwestern brethren.
Oh, that's right.
Is a nice option. Is a nice option to come in.
That's been my guy this whole time, Trai. That's as Dave. Have I not been saying that's what I want them to get?
Absolutely.
And one thing that I think we got a good bunch of guys, but we don't have that alpha dog. We don't have that Marquise Pouncey. We don't have that Alan Faneca. We don't have that guy, that Jason Kelsey, that guy that just really commands the respect on the offensive line. It's so much of guys that I think are friends and do a good job, and they really showed a lot of chemistry towards the end. But you need that dog, that crazy dude. Not necessarily crazy, but somebody that commands respect on the offensive line that you always count on. And we don't have that. At least I haven't seen it yet. And it's not something you can really develop. It's something that you're kind of born with. It's an innate trait that a lot of guys have, like Quentin Nelson. You can kind of tell with him what kind of dog he is. And so it would be nice to have that. I don't know if guys are on the team right now are just kind of shy and don't want to bring up a voice, because it's kind of hard to really grab hold and be that leader when we've had so much turnover as the offensive line and the offensive line coaching department. We've had Coach Meyer is going to be the first one there for 2 years in a row since
Yeah.
Munchak, you know?
Yeah.
And so
That's
that's going to
crazy
go a
when you
long
think
way.
about it.
Right. You know? And
And
so
what's behind that, Trey? What do you think's behind so much change?
it's kind of hard to pinpoint. I mean, when you go from Munchak, he's a Hall of Fame player and a Hall of Fame coach. And so trying to fill those shoes was always going to be hard. And I know we had Sean, who had been there for a while. Actually, he was there towards the end of my last year, so he had put in his time. And then we had Adrian Clem, who went off and did his went off to Oregon. I guess that's where he wanted to go. Now he's in New England, and so all I respect for him. I know he's a good coach, but he had other aspirations. And now we have Coach Meyer, who I think has done a great job in the short amount of time he's been there. So it's going to be really good to have him there for the year or two, and for the coaches, for the players, definitely to have a familiar face to follow. And that's going to pay huge dividends that might not show up in the stat book, but it's really going to show up in how they play as an offensive line this year. But it does have an effect. It has a huge effect. Not having that consistency and that same voice, teaching the same techniques. And so I think that is another reason why the offensive line will improve. But I can't really point to why there's been so much turnover. Obviously, Coach Tomlin wasn't happy.
That's what it comes down to, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I was gonna say Tomlin ain't happy. Yeah, there's gonna be change.
Right. Exactly.
Unsung hero Meyer right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Meyer's done a phenomenal job with the O-line, to be honest.
Yep. He was in there working out Skoronsky at the pro day, so
I saw that.
Yeah.
Do you give any merit to that Skoronsky's got shorter arms thing, or is that just
no
nonsense?
I give no merit to. We had another tackle who's been in the league for 12 years who they said was too short to play tackle, and Calvin Beecham.
Yeah.
And he's managed, even though he has long arms, but he was only 6'2", and people were like, he's too short to play. So it's all about what you do with the attributes that you've been given. I mean, these people with super long arms who can't block worth a damn, you know? And so I don't care if he has short arms. He's gotten a job done in the Big Ten against high-level competition for years.
Yeah.
And so I don't have any issue with him at left guard or left tackle. I'm sorry.
He's the top-ranked tackle in the country in college. So
right, 2 years in a row, and he had to follow another guy, Rashawn Slater, who was a beast.
That's
right. A beast
right.
As well. And so
true.
So, Trey, what's next for you? Are you going to get into coaching? Are you going to do more media stuff? What are you up to?
I'm actually helping with the trust and NFLPA. Right now, I have a focus on helping former players out, especially from a health and working out standpoint, because a lot of guys my age and older aren't fully aware of the benefits that the NFLPA provides, or just don't trust that they're looking out for them in the best interest. And I'm bridging that gap, trying to help those guys out. I tried the coaching thing. It's not quite my cup of tea, but I did have fun. I went down to Tampa and did their internship, and I had a good time with that's Steelers South down there, because they had a lot of guys from when I played, and Goodwin, Carol Goodwin, and Larry Foote's down there, obviously BA. And so it was fun. But if I wasn't going to do it there, I'm not going to do it anywhere. So, and they made it just as easy as possible. And but no, the media thing is cool. I like jumping on podcasts like this with you guys, and I see a future there with me at some point, maybe. But
awesome.
We'll see.
Trey, thanks a lot for doing this. I know you're on a kind of a time crunch. I really appreciate you coming on. I'd love to have you on again at some point, man. This was great. Oh, yeah. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, hit me up. No problem, fellas. Y'all have a good one.
See you, Trey.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, see you.
All right, we're back. That was Trey Essex. He was nice enough to do some 15, 20 minutes with us. That was a great podcast. Dave, you want to do our sponsor read for today?
Sure. Support for the Steelers Sanctuary podcast is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. Manscaped's Performance Package, the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join over 7 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with this exclusive offer for you. 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code SANCTUARY at manscaped.com. If my math is correct, that's about 14 million balls, Dave.
That's about right. You're like a math wizard, Dave. All right. Some Steelers news today. James Pierre's back. Not a huge surprise. Good depth guy, I guess. What do you guys think?
Well, I've been busy as shit all day, so yeah, good to hear from you. I didn't know.
You didn't know? All right.
No, I hadn't.
Breaking
news
news
today,
today,
really
too. Look at that.
I think Caboli had a good point that, like, if they did on the restricted offer, it would cost a lot more, but now they probably signed him for a lot less.
Probably league minimum, right? You would think.
Yeah, so it sounds like a good signing to me. He knows the system. He can step in.
Yeah.
It's not going to be an all-pro, but
Oh, so they didn't have to match anything? They just gave him a new contract?
No. Yeah, completely new contract.
So.
I don't.
Oh, that's great. That's great to hear. You're right. That's going to be way
the details are out. Yeah, but he's probably playing for the minimum or close to it. Some of the bigger news is for the last couple of days is Iowa and Iowa State for Khan and Tomlin, especially Iowa State. That came out of the blue. You kind of figured they might go to Iowa with Van Ness, but Iowa State, it's just Will McDonald as far as a first round, second round talent. Edge rusher in the cards for the Steelers at this point in round one.
It makes you wonder, right?
They've been sniffing around a lot of edge rushers, haven't they?
Yeah, they have.
Definitely, I mean, we've talked about it a million times.
On the radar now.
Yeah, the drop off when you see a lot of these mock drafts, the Steelers could be up at 17 and all the tackles are gone and all the corners are gone. And this is a pretty deep edge class. Maybe that's their backup plan if like Joey Porter's gone and Broderick Jones is gone. I mean, it's possible.
I think that they're if like you just said, if those guys are gone, their main guys they won at 17, I think they're going to trade down. They're going to trade down and acquire picks. What's that, Ron?
I hope so. I hope they do that.
I feel the same way basically. If they don't get their guy, go ahead. Get more picks, start grabbing these other guys in the second round. I'm all for it. I really am.
Yeah, there's a cluster of corners. There's a cluster of tackles. I don't know if there's much separating the ones that are going to be available around their pick from the ones maybe 5-10 picks back from that. Get a pick, get an extra pick, get a second or third out of it all. And in terms of edge, I guess when you think about it, I mean, the whole defense runs through the edge. So if there's not a Watt playing and if there's not a Highsmith playing, both get hurt. They've experienced enough problems trying to find a guy to step in and have any impact when they're down. So
somebody today on the radio they compared Vanessa's tape to Watt's.
Ooh, I think that's a little rich.
Yeah, I know. And I heard that, I was like, that's a strong comparison. Like, wow, okay, but hey, whatever.
Well, to be honest, I don't think TJ Watt tore up Wisconsin. He was good, don't get me wrong, but I don't think he had, because obviously he went later in the draft.
He was transitioning, wasn't he, from tight end to edge rusher, if I remember correctly. Is that right?
He did play tight end at one point.
But he only had, I don't think it's been a while, but I could have sworn he only had one full season as an edge rusher at Wisconsin. Does that sound right, Ron? I'm trying to remember.
I think he had like one or two. He was raw. I think it was a couple, but you're right.
Yeah, he was really, that's what I remember, because that's why he dropped so far down the first round to the Steelers, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was surprising he fell that, but good that he did.
Because the Cowboys took Taco Carlton over him.
Yeah, that's infamous. They picked. That's one of the all-timers.
We had Taco backing up what?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, having I get how important edge is, but having an edge round one or even round two seems like a luxury they can't afford with everything else going on.
I agree.
But I'd love to see them bring in Dupree, bring in Van Noy, and I don't know. Maybe there's some other people they're looking at. Or maybe sometimes they look at these guys and see if other people are looking at them and to see if there's trade value, to your point of trading down, David. They might be trying to figure out, like, is this someone that Dallas wants 5 picks, 10 picks down that we could talk about trading for?
Right.
Because, so they're sometimes trying to game the whole process.
I think it's also, Iowa's got more than one prospect. Jack Campbell, the linebacker, and Riley Moss, the corner. Not first round talents, but definitely guys they probably wanted to take a closer look at. I mean,
and hey, Tony, to his credit, brought up Laporta, the tight end, as well.
Yeah, I forgot about him. That's right. That's another player.
Is that something that they would target? I don't know if they target him or not. I don't know. He's tight end, maybe. You never know. But
they only have one real tight end on the roster.
Yeah,
right. So
now.
I can see Campbell top of the, that's 32 pick.
Yes.
32 or 49. Yeah, I could see that too.
I agree.
I mean, he tested really well for a guy. He's like 6'5", 250. I was looking at him before we went on. And he ran a good 4.5 40.
Big fucking dude running 4.5. Like, yeah.
That's something to keep an eye on for sure. The Will McDonald kid out of Iowa State, he's interesting, man. 6'3". He didn't run at the combine, but he jumped really well. 132-inch broad jump. So he's a good athlete. I saw Tony Pauline posted today. The Steelers took him out for a dinner too. So he's he's first round material.
Dinner.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's super interesting.
Every time we hear dinner, it's getting serious, folks. They're taking him out to dinner. It's like, oh boy.
Well, I remember last year they took so many quarterbacks out for dinner. They thought they're going to drop like 5 quarterbacks.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But it's that history with the Steelers. Their first round picks have been both general manager and Tomlin have been at that pro day, and they've met with them privately. That's like 10 years running now. So
is there any system where you get all three of those, Highsmith, Watt, and him on the field? Or maybe they don't think they're going to re-sign Highsmith. He is a free agent.
Well, that's the other thing that we haven't even discussed is what kind of contract is Highsmith going to be looking for? Can you pay 2 edge guys top dollar, and still have a salary cap? It's
so
a good
what?
Question.
He had 14 and a half sacks this season? He was top 5 in the league, correct?
Yeah. He's going to have.
So if he goes over that this season and is top 3, holy crap.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're going to do both.
And how do you not pay him? I mean.
Right.
Again,
they're going to let him go is what's going to happen.
I don't know.
I will. I'll tell you what, though. I'll say this. If anybody can pull it off, I truly believe now it's Khan. Khan's a salary cap guru guy. Look what he's doing right now. We're all sitting here like almost in amazement. Like, how the hell is this guy doing this right now? Because we're trying to do math and everything. We're like, what? So, I mean, if anybody can pull it off, it's Khan. I truly believe that.
You still have a quarterback on a rookie contract, so I guess you could theoretically do it for a couple more seasons and then figure it out later. I mean,
I think they can. I'm trying to think if there's any guys about to sort of fall off the roster, in a couple years, right? Like Cam, maybe.
It's pretty. Cam's the one, right?
Cam's definitely the one. That's an accurate. That's an accurate one.
Yeah, all the other big contracts. I mean, TJ and Minka are going to be around hopefully for the next 3 or 4 years. And
you got to start thinking
Chooks
about
is probably
Najee, and there's other guys to re-sign. Now Deontay may be gone.
That's another one.
Yeah, I think so too.
So
it's a fluid thing. It's a lot to spend on the edge position. Like TJ's the number 1 edge paid, and Highsmith won't get that much, but he's going to come close. I mean,
they have 2 top 5 edge pay contracts if they sign him probably.
Do you think he'll be looking for the Bud Dupree money with Tennessee?
You probably start at that, right? He's had a better career. He could point if he has a good season this season.
I will say, I am dubious that he could have a repeat year like he did last year. I super hope I'm wrong.
Right.
I just felt like the thing with the Highsmith that does worry me is there are 5 games a year where he looks unstoppable. There are 5 he looks okay, and there are 5 I don't find him playing. That kind of scenario with him. Every game he's making an impact.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And I see Highsmith, like, I don't know if it's matchup or what it is, but there are games where he's just on fire, and there are games where like he's quiet.
Right.
So I don't know.
Oh, trust me, Dave bitched about it enough during like the Eagles game or the Bill. We were like, where the hell is Highsmith?
Hey, there's a world where the Steelers see that and don't want to pay him top dollar, and that's why they're sniffing out so many edge rushers. Maybe. And they don't have to necessarily draft one in the first round. They could draft one in the second and groom him behind Highsmith. It's pretty much the same scenario they did with Bud. They drafted Highsmith.
Yep.
They let Bud play his contract out and let him walk, and they plugged Highsmith in and just moved along their business.
Rinse, repeat. They're doing the same system because the system works. I mean,
maybe they're just trying to scare Highsmith so that he'll sign a contract now.
Or that. I
mean,
mean,
you never know.
Technically, this offseason's the offseason because this is his last year he's going into. Then you're up against, he could be a free agent. You might have to franchise him and all that mess. So
I'd love
Maybe
to
you're
see
right.
him
Maybe that
this year. But yeah, this is a tough year to do it because he's coming off his best career year. Again,
Yeah,
it's a lot.
exactly.
It's a lot of game of chicken here, right? Like, is he going to have another season next year like he did this year? Does he want to risk that if he's, are they even trying to extend him? All these questions and more.
Yeah, there's a lot going
the
on with the
Steelers.
Edge.
Got the Steelers pulling out the guerrilla warfare tactics. See what they can do.
see us
There's probably
having dinner with your replacement. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
There's probably no better team in the league than the Steelers at that, right? They do not budge. They do not budge. All right, one last thing before we get out of here. Did you guys read about this Ben Roethlisberger's comments about how the 49ers contacted him?
Yes.
About playing there, and he kind of entertained it and preyed on it. And I know Ben's kind of, drama Ben sometimes. How much do you – I mean, I don't think he'd come out and boldly lie about it, so there's got to be some truth to it.
Sure, they talked. I mean, and again, like this is a guy that was a seasoned veteran with a team that was down quarterback, so it makes sense.
The problem with this is it's fucking Ben, and Ben's got to be well. Mike and then didn't want me back, but the 49ers wanted me. So just so you know, it's like, dude, you didn't do it, so no one cares. Like that's how I feel. Like I'm just like, dude, it just.
Yeah,
I don't know. That shit drives me crazy, man. It's just like, bro, we get it. You probably could have still played, but you didn't. So shut up. Like I just.
It doesn't interest me either. I have to agree. It's interesting for a second, but it's sort of like, okay.
Yeah, like you hear it and you're like, oh, but then when you're like, yeah, but I wasn't interested. It's like, okay, why even bring it up then? Like,
I'm more interested in figuring out what the hell they're going to do with safety right now. Like, why?
Right? Yes, exactly. Yeah, I mean, like honestly,
what I did
it's
find
like,
interesting
dude, if you were about to sign pen to paper, then that's big. But when they asked, I said no. Okay, then what? It's just him wanting to show, hey, Colbert and Tomlin didn't want me, but other teams did. Just so you know, I don't care. Whatever.
The part I find interesting is he's kind of painted Kevin Colbert as a bad guy in this, right? He's mentioned Colbert more than once. Colbert didn't want me. Colbert didn't want me. I
guess he said it was Colbert more than Tomlin.
Yeah,
but Troy has said that. All these guys say it. Like every guy that leaves the Steelers that's a super high level player. No one likes to leave not on their own terms. Right. I think there's a sense of, I don't know if entitlement is a hard word, but there's a sense of like, look, I played at this level for years. I should be able to go out on my terms, not on your terms. And that's not how it works, but that's not how they feel. So you got Ben, you got Troy. Who else? So there's other.
Troy held a grudge for a while. They said Troy held a grudge for a long time.
You can make an argument he still is holding the grudge.
Yeah, right.
Really, right. It's not completely.
It happens a lot. Wasn't Hines. I'm trying to think of who else felt that way. A few other guys felt.
I think you might be right on Hines Ward. I think he did. At one point,
there was
kind
something
of
there too. I think you're right. I think there was something there too.
So it's just all these guys who play at high levels. A lot of them, they're not leaving on. I mean, Hal Franco played for Seattle for crying out.
Yeah.
I mean, that wasn't a Colbert, but I mean, none of these guys want to leave.
It's just tough. It's tough for them to face the facts that, hey, your prime's gone, and you're just it's over.
And a lot of them felt like they still had it. I think that's like they felt like they were prematurely asked to go. Like, and they weren't ready yet, and they felt like they should be able to make that call because they're Hall of Fame guys, and they gave it their all for that team, and only that team. So, I get it, but moving on.
You get the feeling, especially Ben, he's going to think he can still play when he's 60. He's still going to have that. I think I could still go out there and sling it if I had to.
Yeah. I guess that's what
all right, guys.
Yeah,
that's true. It's a double-edged sword, right? That's what made them great in the first place.
Yeah.
All right, guys, thanks a lot. This is a great podcast. You can follow me on Steelers16. Follow us on YouTube at Steelers Sanctuary. Ron, you got anything coming up you want to plug for interviews?
Interestingly enough, I had a lot of good interviews last week with like a lot of the front office folks from the prior teams, like Dan Ferentz, who was the lead contract guy for the Steelers for 20 plus years, and some of the CFOs like Ralph Meacham from way back. Just like interesting takes on like how they run the business side of it, which is always kind of cool for me because it's interesting to see how they approach contract negotiations and that sort of thing. So that'll be coming up.
Yeah, definitely check that out. Dave, you want to give me your stuff so we can get out of here?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at M_Corb. You can find me on TikTok, Steelers Sanctuary Podcast, or at StillSancPod. I do cigars, whiskey, talk about the podcast. You're more than welcome to comment, message me. I love talking sports on there. That's all I got.
All right. Don't forget our sponsor, Manscaped. Use the code Sanctuary for 20% off. And thanks for listening to the Steelers Sanctuary Podcast.